What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things
with Shawn and Andrew,
a podcast all about couples
and the things they go through.
Today, I am truly fangirling. When I received the message on Instagram, when they replied,
yes,
we'll tell you who they are in a second. I ran laps around the house. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was living in a daydream.
When I tell you that Shawn was giggling and giddy with excitement,
yes.
I'm not lying. Today we sit down with Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach, two legends in their own right and
Yes.
a power couple together.
Abby Wambach, two-time Olympic gold medalist, literally the GOAT in soccer. The greatest. Literally known as like the best soccer player of all time.
Two-time Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
She's also a New York Times best-selling author, as is her counterpart,
Her wife.
Glennon Doyle, who has written books like Love Warrior and Untamed.
Yes.
We will link the information for that.
And Glennon is making a massive name for herself in the untamed world, preaching this concept of being untamed, being true to yourself. She is in the reading circles of Oprah and Reese Witherspoon, Kristen Bell. Everybody. She's amazing.
That's right. So this was the conversation that I think we put the most thought into. We had the most fun with. Mm-hmm. And it was also the most challenging in a lot of ways. So here's the deal. Glennon's story is this. She was in a traditional marriage, had several kids, divorced, met Abby, and married Abby.
Yes.
And so she has caught a lot of slack from dissenters, but also has gained cult-like devotion from others. And here's our stance. I think whether you are blindly in love with somebody or disagree adamantly with somebody for whatever the reason, it's important to still be able to have a respectful conversation.
Yes.
Still be able to be thoughtful, still be able to listen and glean things that you do like and you don't like. And so I enjoyed today because I had so much good things to say. And I'll tell you from a father's perspective that I want Drew to be like them in so many different ways.
Yes. It was the greatest conversation of all time.
The greatest conversation of all time.
I'm not putting that on myself. I'm putting it on them. I love them. I want to be their new best friends. Like you said, especially now being mom to Drew, these are two of the most powerful women in today's world. They are not afraid to be who they are. They stick up for everyone else. They have such a strong voice. I love everything they stand for.
Yeah. And they are activists. They profess to be activists. They're known as activists. And again, no matter if you agree with them on what they're activists about or disagree with them on what they're activists about, still listen to the conversation, be thoughtful about it, and take what you can from it. So that's why we're excited to have this conversation with you. We're excited to hear your feedback. If you haven't, please subscribe to the show and rate it. Love to hear your criticisms, your praise, whatever it is. Also, today's a big day because yesterday, Abby came out with a children's version of her New York Times bestselling book called Wolfpack. We'll link the information for that down below. But let's go ahead and roll into this one with Glennon and Abby. Glennon and Abby, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to start off here by saying I feel wildly underaccomplished compared to you three amazing women. It's an honor to be sitting in all of your presences, to be honest. So thank you two for joining us, though.
Thank you. What an honor for us to be here with you two. We're excited for this.
Totally.
So I don't know if you know this, but we just had a daughter not too long ago, and I look at you three women, and you're exactly what I want Drew to be like, with ambition and bravery and all the amazing things you guys have done, and you haven't been scared to do it. It's been fun, though, coming from a pretty conservative Christian background. My parents, when Shawn and I first got married, were like kind of hesitant because our arrangement was a little non-traditional in the sense that like my whole life then and now is all about supporting Shawn and like her ambitions, which is not, the normal conservative Christian background. I'm curious, have you guys ever, anyone ever told you have like a non-traditional marriage?
No. You think that? No, nobody's ever mentioned that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've had both. I was married to a man. My first marriage was a little bit more traditional, I think.
Yeah.
And quite, conservative Christian also through much of your first marriage.
Yeah, I grew up Catholic. We both grew up Catholic. Mm-hmm. And then I was very involved in an evangelical church for a very long time. And was a Sunday school teacher up until just about a year ago when I wasn't able to do it anymore. But I definitely have also been told that our arrangement is non-traditional. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And it's funny because for the most of my career, any partner that I have had has in much ways kind of been that support system that you talk of. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool now to be married to Glennon because we are both independently, successful. We have our own businesses, but with this Untamed book and the success of that, it's been really beautiful and an amazing experience. I'm sure you guys understand now, being new parents, how when you're so focused on yourself and your craft, Shawn, I know you understand what this is. It's like it is one of the most selfish endeavors. And then to be taken away outside of that, I retired to focus my energy on our family and Glennon's release of Untamed. It's been beautiful to see it from this perspective. So I have kind of a unique ability and perspective that I've been in both positions. But yeah, traditional upbringing. I call myself kind of a recovering Catholic because you can imagine what it would feel like to be a little gay kid sitting in the pew next to your mom and your family and wondering what abomination means and wondering what all these big words mean that essentially my being, my humanness meant that I was going to hell. So I've been fighting against that quite a bit. But yeah, I love the support system. I love being in support and service to somebody else. It's really, I think, why I've been put on the earth.
And I think for us, it's what I have found works for us is that I used to have this idea of, okay, so in every relationship, there's the kite and there's the kite holder, right? So there's like the one who's just like out there doing the thing and is flying high and whatever. And then there's the one who's just like holding them steady, right? And both are equally important and blah, blah, blah. But I actually don't think that works in the long run, because inevitably the kite holder is going to get sick of being the kite holder. And the kite is going to need to rest. And so I love what we have, which is that it's always a back and forth. Like the last year has definitely been, you've been the kite holder. And then the year before that was Abby's Wolfpack book release. And I was the kite holder then. And I'm sure a year from now, I don't know. I just think it's super important that both people have their time to be the support and that each has the time to be the supported.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, was that a tease for Abby's next book, maybe? Was that, alternating just years?
One, I guess. We can pick one so that I can stop being the damn kite.
Well, the Young Readers edition comes out in October.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yes.
Something I absolutely love about the couples that we get to interview is, and it was one of like our missions when we started it, is I got so tired of how people put relationships into a box. They say, if you don't do this and if you don't follow these guidelines, then your marriage or your relationship is going to fail. And it's been cool to interview different couples who have gone through some very hard things and tragic things, and they've had affairs or there's been all these different stories we've heard where people have said, you know what, I don't care what the world tells me to do now. I'm going to go do my own thing and we're going to make it work. And I think it's just really cool to hear your guys' story. I told Andrew that, I don't know like how I worded it, but it was basically like, what you guys are my favorite couple in the entire world to follow on social media. I die over Glennon, you drinking Abby's smoothies and just all these chronicles. It makes my day. But one of my favorite things that you guys do is you show your relationship to the world. And it seems so quote unquote normal, but yet you're doing your own thing and you're showing so many people in the world that the box that they've defined is completely wrong. And I just think it's a really powerful thing how you guys are kind of living out your marriage in your own way, and yet it's perfectly right.
Is there a lot of resistance that you meet on a day-to-day basis?
In what way? Yes, but there's so many areas. Give me a category of resistance.
Okay, well, so I think you guys are both, I think in your Instagram bios, activists for a lot of different things. Is there a lot of resistance for the things that you are activists for?
Yeah.
All of it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I am a fierce feminist and LGBTQ and anti-racism activist inside of Christianity. Which
nobody gives her problems for that.
I feel a comfortable place to be, you guys.
Everybody agrees.
Everyone agrees with me, feels good about me in general. Yeah, I think so. But also, there's so much understanding and beauty. And, I think that when we are really, truly who we are out loud, we're not going to fit in any category. I think that you can be sure that you're not being true to yourself when you do neatly fit inside of a category, and when no one's ever, annoyed with you, or when you're never rocking the boat. And that doesn't have to be in terms of activism. That can be in terms of family. I mean, we all know that, some of the hardest boxes to break out of are the ones our family puts us in.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I mean,
I think just to add to that, I think that one of the most important things that we learned early on when Glenn and I first met, we actually spoke to a lot of really amazing thinkers, people who were close to us personally and also kind of famous in the world. And one of the things that one woman said to us, she said, you just have to love each other, because we were so worried about what people would say. She has children. I come from this like Christian Catholic background where I've got a whole bunch of shame wrapped up in that. And for us, the reason why we're activists is not to change everybody's mind, though that would be great. We don't believe that we can change everybody's mind, but what we try to do is educate people. And as it goes in any kind of non-traditional relationship, and what we're saying is a non-white, a non-straight relationship. Like that's what non-traditional means, anything on the margins. And I think because we are in a gay marriage, we want to just be out loud and show all the things that happen that also happen in every other relationship in the world, because that for us feels like the great equalizer. And that's like, rather than getting on a soapbox saying, yes, we are gay and we are the same. Like, we just show Glennon stealing my food and taking my shakes, and leaving the cabinet doors open and me scaring her. Like, we're just the same as anybody out there. And the only way you can sometimes show that is just to literally let somebody into your house.
Well.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important to kind of just have conversations, but I think the best way to have a conversation is to find similarities. And Abby, when I look at your Instagram, it's like pretty much parallel to mine, where like you're just showing your spouse and all the annoying, fun, cute things that they do. And so I think that to your point that there's so much power in that. I interrupted you.
Well, no, I was going to say it's the relatability factor. I feel like, again, going back to this box that people try to paint, which never works, or it works for some people. But like you said, Glenn, and they're probably not being true to who they are in some fashion or in some way. But the relatability factor, when people watch you and they're like, oh yeah, I do that. My spouse does that. My boyfriend, my girlfriend, what does that. They start relating to a relationship and a form of love that is truly undeniable.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where there's no argument.
And Glennon, you said in your book that they don't have to understand me to love me, I think. And I think that that's an important thing. We're like, hey, each of us has so many similarities. We also have plenty of differences, but we don't necessarily have to understand those differences to appreciate each other. I did feel the drinking the milkshake, Abby. Felt that in my soul.
Yeah, I'll never understand it. And just to speak to relativity, because I think that that's a way for people to feel safe. And I know from coming from the family that I'm in, it's like, if you are like us in any way, then like, come on in and we can have a conversation wrapped around that one little thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why Glennon and I have such a reach, because, you know, from what it looks like, I appear to be more masculine. She appears to be more feminine, but there are certain things that I am so much more feminine than she is about, and vice versa. And so there's this kind of confusion dynamic that's also relevant inside of pieces of the relativity that people can hold on to. And I think what that shows is that no matter who you are, if you are identify as a man or woman or anywhere in between, it feels to me like human beings can relate in some way, in one way, and like let us look for those relativity points rather than the divisive points.
Yeah. And even our family, the way our family runs is so different. You know, we are people who were taught that divorce is the worst thing, that divorce is failure, right? That what you need to avoid is a broken family. And what a broken family is a divorced family. And so I stayed in a marriage. We both stayed in marriages for probably far too long. That, and what I realized one day was like, oh, wait, am I sure that the definition the world has given me of a broken family is right? Because actually I see a lot of my friends out there in marriages where they are slowly dying and their children are not being served, and they seem really broken. And I see other families,
but they're still married, right?
Yeah, they're still in this original structure. And I see these other families who have shifted their structure, but they're thriving and they're fully alive and they're held and so what if the definition of a broken family is any family in which a member has to break herself into pieces to fit in, right? And a whole family is a family regardless of structure, that everybody is held and free and valued and seen and loved. And so our family is different. You know, we have Craig, who is our most important person. Our most important person is my ex-husband. Yeah. And we just went on a huge family vacation. Like, don't get me started, because we're in a freaking cabin in the mountains.
Cabin.
There was like water rafting costumes and like flying through trees. Like it wasn't hard enough to walk. You had to fly through trees. I don't know. But
we went whitewater rafting and zip lining.
Zip lining. I was about to say, it sounds like zip lining.
This is how an artist would explain those experiences.
Whatever you want to call it. But we were with Craig and his girlfriend and her son and our kids, and like there are ways to do things. There are more beautiful visions of family than what we have in our minds. Yeah. You know, and sometimes in order to create the beautiful family we were made for, we have to go outside of what our culture has told us is acceptable.
Yeah.
I'm loving the conversation. Let's take a quick break and hear from the sponsors. Today's show is brought to you in part by Magic Spoon. So I don't know about you, but I have been in the snacking mood lately, especially since we've been working from home. And we've been on a total cereal kick because we actually have a choice now to sit down and eat breakfast in the morning.
Yes, Magic Spoon has been probably one of the first cereals that I've actually loved, just because the downside to those traditional cereals is they don't keep you full for very long because there's no protein. Now we found Magic Spoon, which is high protein, low carb, and tastes amazing.
It has 0 grams of sugar, 11 grams of protein, and only 3 net carbs.
It comes in 4 flavors, which is cocoa, fruity, frosted, and blueberry. My favorite is the frosted. It's delicious.
I will crush any and all of the flavors. And you can try them all in the variety pack.
It's also keto friendly, gluten free, grain free, soy free, low carb, GMO free. It's awesome.
When I think about the fact that it's 0 grams of sugar and it still tastes so good, it tastes like all the cereals you ate growing up.
Yeah, it makes you happy. So if you want to try it, go to magicspoon.com/EastFam to grab a variety pack and try it today. Be sure to use the promo code EastFam at checkout to get free shipping.
And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked.
That's magicspoon.com/EastFam and use the code EastFam for free shipping.
Thank you to Magic Spoon for sponsoring today's podcast.
As Drew gets older, we started trying out solid foods and supplementing her feedings with Infamil formula. As Drew gets older, we've started trying out solid foods and supplementing her feedings with Infamil formula.
I love it so much because now I get to be involved with her meal times and that whole learning and discovery process, which is so cool to see.
And I love that Andrew can give Drew a bottle.
Whether you choose to formula feed, breastfeed, or supplement, it's absolutely a personal choice, and you should choose what works best for your family and your baby.
Amen. And if you decide not to breastfeed, or it's just an option, Infamil Inspire, the brand's closest formula to breast milk, is a great option as it has immune-supporting lactoferrin, DHA for brain development, and dual prebiotic.
Immune health and development is so important, and we're so grateful Infamil Inspire helps support that kind of foundation for baby Drew.
Try Infamil Inspire by visiting shop.infamil.com/inspire3 to receive $3 off an Infamil Inspire infant formula 20.5-ounce tub. You guys know how competitive we are. And outside of sports, we've been really into this game called Best Fiends lately, which you guys know of. That's best friends without the R.
No joke. The other morning, I woke up to Shawn playing
I had
Best
to beat
Fiends.
you.
Shawn.
That's what you get for challenging me to a Best Fiends face-off. Just over here scaling the leaderboard.
Seriously, we can't put it down. And there's always another update, whether it's to add more levels or fun changes to the game based off fan feedback.
Yes. 5,000 levels and counting. It's a casual puzzle game, perfect for road trips or while you're waiting for your coffee in the morning.
Just don't blame us if you end up kind of being obsessed.
Best Fiends is the can't put down mobile puzzle game with over 100 million downloads and counting. It's free to download and has literally millions of 5-star reviews on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
And like we said, more levels, events, and challenges are added all the time. So play away. There's always one more level. The whole game is kind of centered around these different characters. They have good guys, bad guys. The color and the experience is really fun. So if you want to test your puzzle skills and try this game out, you can download Best Fiends free today on the Apple App Store or Google Play.
That's friends without the R, Best Fiends.
Let's get back to it. So it's been brought up a couple times. I'm curious. I think, Abby, you said you're a recovering Catholic. What is each of your relationship to religion or God, I think maybe more broadly now?
Yeah. Mine's very complicated.
Yeah.
I kind of touched on it a little bit before. I was born and raised Catholic, and from a very young age, I realized that I was either going to have to choose God and my mom or myself.
Your sexuality.
Or myself and being who I was as a gay person. And so 17 years old, I decided, okay, this is something I can't deny who I am. So I turned towards myself, thank goodness. And so my relationship with God at that point, I became a hardcore atheist. I was like, there is no such thing as God. There is no God. That's basically what I was trying to make true for myself in order for me to walk away from God.
She was furious at the God she did not believe existed.
Yeah. Equal rebellion, right? So actually, it's one of the things that brought me to Glennon is her faith and her definition of God. Because can you tell the story about when we were at an event, one of your events?
Yeah, so we were at an event. I speak at a lot of churches, a lot of brave churches, a lot of crazy churches, and we were getting ready to go out to speak, and the minister, we were in the back, and the minister must have been really wonderful because you just really opened up.
Well, I said, are you open and affirmative?
Right, you always ask that first, yeah. So I would only be speaking at a church that was open.
Well, right. I would need to ask.
What do you mean by open and affirming, Abby?
So you could probably say it better. Open and affirming is churches that actually recognize gay people, basically, right? Is there more specifics to that?
I mean, I would say that it's more complicated than that. So for an open and affirming church, to me, and in practice, is a church that fully affirms gay people. So not just the thing that churches do where they say, we welcome everyone. So I always tell people that if you want to know where a church stands, you do not look at the pews, okay? You look at the pulpit. So if you want to know who a church accepts and celebrates, you don't ask who they invite, you ask who they hire to lead, okay? Because what you will find is many churches say, we're open to everyone, we welcome everyone. But if you are a woman, you are only allowed in the nursery, right? If you will see no people of color on the pulpit. You will see no disabled people anywhere. You will see no gay people in leadership anywhere. So to me, the measure of a church is who they hire to lead.
Right.
So to me, like in many churches, you don't see anyone in a pulpit who looks anything like somebody Jesus would have actually been hanging out with. Right?
That's good.
Yeah.
So if I don't see anybody in a church that looks like a ragamuffin, looks like somebody who's pushed to the sides, looks like somebody who's marginalized in our culture, then I know that what we have is not a church, we have a country club.
Right.
Right? So for me, that is extremely important. The question I ask all the time before I'm asked to speak at a church is, can you please show me who you have on staff?
It's good.
Interesting.
So
go back to the story.
Yeah.
Right. So we're in the back and the minister says, Abby says, I, at a really young age, was made to choose between God and myself, my deepest self, and I chose myself. And the minister said, damn straight. She said something like that. And I was like, that's not exactly it. And what the conversation we had after, and I think this is the best way that I can describe the difference to me between faith and religion, is that what I realized happened with Abby is that when she chose the self that God made her, when she chose her deepest being, right? When she refused to abandon herself to fit inside religion, she was not choosing herself instead of God and church, okay? She was choosing herself and God instead of church, okay? When she walked away from church in that moment, she was doing that to protect God in her, right? So if I had to define what faith is to me, it is an allegiance, an alliance, a integration, not with a man-made religion, but with the deepest self, which is God, right? So I would argue that this is what Jesus was saying over and over again when he was saying, I and the Father are one, right? The kingdom of heaven is not out there, it is in here, right? That there is a deepest self that is like this little piece of God that's been broken off that is inside each one of us. And what sometimes I believe is the danger of any fundamentalist religion is that the seeker goes to these places. The seeker wants to find God, and in these places often is the place where they are most separated from God, because what fundamentalists, and not just religion, company, cult, any kind of group needs to do is separate a person from her deepest self, right? In order to gain allegiance to that group. So this is why, and in the beginning of all fundamentalist religions, not just Christianity, what is taught to us in the beginning is that we cannot trust ourselves, right? And that is the lesson. That is the heart is wicked. That is the story of Adam and Eve, which is, do not follow your curiosity. Do not trust yourself. You will be, that's particularly misogynist because it's the woman who's the temptress and torn away. But I think that what Abby was taught, which is so sad, and I work with so many families who have gay kids who come to this crisis point, right, where they have to decide whether they're going to choose their religion or they're going to choose their child, whether they're going to see God more in religion or they're going to see God more in the beingness of their child, right, is that there is a time where we actually believe that religion and God are the same thing. Mm-hmm. And they just aren't.
And I think that day in that minister's office, I mean, she literally said all those words to me within 4 or 5 minutes. And she's like, okay, I got to go on stage. And I was like, sitting there like, holy cow. That.
She didn't say cow.
No, I didn't. Trying to respect. I just feel like it was one of the most important conversations in my life, because I had turned so far away from God that even though I thought I turned towards myself, I also was turning away from myself when I turned away from this God that I thought was church, right? So that ever since then, I think that I have been more in line with divine, with God, with Allah, however you define that for yourself. I honor that in you, because, I mean, Glennon's words, it was the first time she allowed me to see myself as godly in a way.
And Jesus, I'm obsessed with Jesus. Like, I worship the guy. I am like full on worship. Free. Okay. And that's because, like, I just feel like it makes me crazy that we're never actually talking about Jesus in the Bible. We're never talking about the actual Jesus who, like, walked around, like, literally looking at his culture and asking 2 questions. Okay, who is power forgetting and who is religion oppressing? That's it, right? Who is power forgetting, who is religion oppressing? And then gathering all of those people together, eating with them, walking with them, always directionally toward power, right? That's where the crew was going the whole time, right? Towards the Roman Empire, right? So Christianity is this, vertical and horizontal of gathering all the people who are marginalized, always, and always going towards the power structure that is causing that marginalization, right? So during that time when Jesus asks, who is power forgetting, who is religion oppressing, it was back then it was the tax collectors, right? It was the prostitutes, it was the lepers, right? Those are the people that power is pushing away, that religion is oppressing. Now, when we use the Jesus story as a guide to the way we're supposed to be living now, and we ask ourselves those 2 questions, then we're gathering who is marginalized, right? We are gathering gay kids. We are gathering the Muslim people in this country. We are gathering the Black kids. We are gathering the Black overly incarcerated people. We are gathering the immigrant families at the border. If we are not gathering those marginalized people, then we are not living as Jesus did in any way, shape, or form, right? And if we're not challenging constantly the power structures that are causing that marginalization, then we're not living as Jesus did. So my vision of Jesus and the way the stories that he was here to teach us are different than the stories we see about what Christianity is. Jesus and Christianity, to me, can be 2 very different things.
The interesting thing to me, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I think our theology is slightly different, and that's totally fine. I think I differ. I don't know how you feel, but in the sense that I'm not sure I view like God in us as much as like I'm a huge believer, and I've been so frustrated at the church because I feel like there is like a Christian mold that like everyone speaks the same vocab and says like, oh, like, how's your heart? You know what I'm saying?
What's on your heart? What's on your heart?
Yeah.
I know it all.
And so it's like, the Bible talks about the body of Christ, and I am a huge believer that like we each need to figure out why God made us, what we're good at. Like we each have talents that are God given, right? And like that have specific uses. So I think almost like rather than I think God in us, maybe it's like God like displayed almost, or like his work. But on that, it's I mean, I'm just curious. It's cool because I agree with a lot of the things you're talking about, like the confidence and the sense of adventure and the transparency that leads to so much good stuff.
I warned Andrew about this, by the way, before we started.
Theological.
He loves debating theology and philosophy.
No, it's fine. Like we have a lot of.
That's all I want to do. Like let's just do 12 hours. Let's go.
Yeah. I know. But I warned him. I was like, I think you guys could really like do this for a long time, so we have to be careful not to like.
But the point is not the differences. I just say that because
No.
there's a lot of the similar fruit, you could say, from our different theologies.
I mean,
which is
I think one thing that Glennon taught me early on in our relationship is the beauty of language, right? Something that I say, a word that I use might not relate to you in any way. And one of Glennon's genius, a trait of Glennon's that makes her genius is that she can speak anybody's language, right? And figure
you are
out
good at that, Glennon.
What you mean when you're saying God, and it might be a little bit of a perspective shift. You might say my theology is a little bit different. I have a different, but like from the root of it all, I think what you're saying is such similar stuff.
Right.
Like if you were to get down to the
this isn't the BS of Christianity, right? I'm like, God in me, and you're like, no, it's God revealed in me. Like we could go to war over that, right?
Sure.
But we're saying the same thing. It's so beautiful.
We've had these conversations so many times, and again, we could go down a rabbit hole. I have so many other things that I want to ask you guys. But we've had this conversation so many times about just religion in general, how everybody interprets the same book so differently and makes their own rules and their own molds. And they say, you have to do this and you can't do that. And they all contradict each other. And they all say, if you do this, you're going to hell. But the next religion says you can do it and you're fine. And it makes no sense to me because yes, we argue this. We're always on the same page. Let me apologize
for throwing this in. I am sorry, but
he's like, oh no.
I am curious. I wonder if there's any tension, Abby, from your athletic background. Glennon, I understand you're a new fan of sports, and you've
the
sports. So, but as athletes, we're constantly taught like self-imposed suffering, like the importance of that, right? And like denying maybe what we feel like those desires are. You know what I'm saying? Like whether it's waking up at 4 a.m. as opposed to sleeping in, or like the diet, all of it. Glennon, your book is like, it's all about following your desires. And I wonder how you guys have meshed that.
Well, okay. I would argue with you, friend, that it is about following desire, but I think it's really important to talk about what kind of desires I'm talking about. It's about our deepest, truest desires. So like the way that when people often, who pigeonhole me as like Eve, I, for one, believe Eve was framed, but that's fine. I am the Eve that's dragging people to like follow their desires. Like that's one way of looking at it. But I also think that we have a way of looking at desire, which is looking at surface desires. So for example, if a woman comes to me and says, we can't all just follow our desire. Like, I want to have a bottle of Malibu a night. Like, should I just follow that desire? And I'm like, okay, that's not the kind of desire I'm talking about. So let's talk about what's inside that want. Okay. What does the bottle of Malibu represent for you? Because in a capitalist culture, we can get back to Jesus on that in a second. In a capitalist culture, what capitalism's job is to figure out what the deepest desires are of human beings and then attach that to their products and then sell the products, right? Mm-hmm. So what people are selling to us is our own deepest desires. We just don't know that. So what does the bottle of Malibu represent for you? What it represents is a break. Mm-hmm. Right? What it represents is deep rest. Mm-hmm. What it represents is stop performing and check out. Mm-hmm. Like what it represents is get off the hamster wheel, close down your mind, like rest, deep, deep, deep rest. Okay. So when I talk about following desire, I'm not talking about let's all go get wasted and do all of the things that like whatever the hell are, I'm talking about the desire beneath the desires, which is something that Jesus talks about all the time, right? Like I'm talking about like, the deepest desires of human beings, which are to be seen, to be loved, to deeply love, to serve, to be free. All of these kinds of desires that actually we were meant to in life and life to the fullest, to have met and to help other people meet.
Yes.
So when I want to be careful about that when you say it's about following your desires, because on one Christian spin of that is like, oh, she's just out here like freaking Armageddon is next with what she's telling people to do. And the other part, when you actually read the book, is that when I followed my deepest desires, what happened is this army of warriors was unleashed all over the earth that has become one of the leading groups in reuniting families at the border, in serving refugees in Syria. And like, when people meet their deepest desires, they are freed in wild and amazing ways, which is all of what Judith was talking about.
And I think just to go back to like the whole point of that question, the difference between my athletic career and this drive. Oh yeah,
sports. We're talking about sports.
And like the drive that I had, and how do we connect, right? Like one thing that I've learned in my retirement from Glennon actually is the difference between internal motivation and external motivation. So most of my athletic career, I was externally motivated, right? I was motivated by wanting to win gold medals, by financial gain, by awards, by
coaches,
praise. Praise. I was motivated by praise. It's a very big personality trait of mine. And then when all that stuff went away, I had to like dig deep inside of myself to try to figure out what that was about, because that's like so ego driven, right? So for me, what I've learned is that this internal motivation, the stuff that I've been working on over the past 4 or 5 years since I retired, not only is it much more fruitful and fulfilling, but it's actually more in line with God. Because, and I'm not saying this because I think God is in me or God is outside of I just think that when I'm doing something true to who I am, it will be in line with the world. It has to be in line with the world. Service, and service. And there is this crossover between spirituality and athletics, or spirituality and statistics and spirituality, because if we can find our truest and deepest and most true and beautiful life that we can possibly live, and we live it out, I do think that the kingdom of earth, the kingdom of heaven does come down to earth on some level.
Good.
Something I think you both talk about a lot separately and in the same conversations is identity. Glenn, I think you talk about it a lot in your book. Abby, you've talked about it with sports and just in your book as well. I know from my personal experience with elite athletics, my identity was wrapped up in whatever the world wanted to tell me I was. I was just the gymnast. I was just the medal, nothing else. They told me what I could wear, how I could talk, how I could act, who I should hang out with, all of it. Glennon, you've talked a lot about the identity that you got caught up in with your husband and the church, and even going as far as like eating disorders and having an image tied to it. I'm curious how your relationship has helped that, working through both identities and like world stigmas, because I know one of the greatest things to ever happen to me was finding Andrew, because I was wrapped up in an identity that I didn't know how to get out of. And he saw something different when the doors were closed and I could kind of let that guard down. And he helped me kind of heal through that and become, who I was. And I'm curious if you guys have gone through that together or healed outside of it and, I don't know, like flourished each other's.
It's a good question.
I love that. Look at you, Andrew. Good job.
Stop.
That feels so familiar to me.
Yeah, I think that, I can only speak for myself, but in terms of identity, I had a whole life before I met Glennon. Did pretty good.
You did okay.
I was a pretty functioning alcoholic. I won some gold medals. I liked to party way too much. And I actually met Glennon 1 month into my sobriety. Glennon at that point had been 14 or 15 years sober herself. And, it was more like when we met, it was more like a recognizing, like a remembering of something that I had lost in myself long ago. And I didn't have this language until she wrote Untamed, and watching her actually go through getting untamed or untaming herself, you could imagine what our relationship could look like behind closed doors in terms of being two women who are very introspective, very philosophical, spiritual, and seekers and mystics.
And sober, so we have nothing else to do.
So we just talk all the time about any feeling that comes up. Like, it's the stereotypical, like what you imagine, that is us.
Two
like
women,
it is what you can bet is happening in our house.
We had a half an hour conversation the other night about whether I got sad enough when she was sad. Like, that's what the entire conversation. Like,
that's a really interesting conversation.
This is the conversations I wish she would have with me.
Yeah, that's what. I'm not sure, Shawn. I'm not sure. You think you want it until you find yourself 40 minutes into defending yourself for whether or not you're sad enough when the person's sad. Like, it's just a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I just relate to what you said deeply, Shawn, which is just like this person, like sometimes it just feels as if all of life is a stage. And then there's this person that you can just be backstage with.
Ah, that's good.
You know, that is finally that person that sees the act. And I think the act, which is identity, is what we do because we think it is what will make people love us. And sometimes it does, you know, or usually it's probably not love, it's admiration, which is a different thing. But then when you find the person who loves you when you stop the act, that's when you found your person.
Well, similar to, again, your past, and I mean, a lot of people's past, I feel like a lot of people make the mistake of they find someone who likes the act or loves it. They marry that person and then they get tired of it. They get tired of performing. And when their performance, goes away, they're left with like, oh, I don't know who you are and this isn't going to work. Instead of just finding someone from the beginning that appreciates who you are, like you said, backstage.
Yeah, I think that just to add to that too, one of the things that we always challenge each other on is this external idea of identity. What has the world been trying to tell me who to be and how to be and what to say and why to say it? Not just for me as a woman, but also for me as a former pro athlete, for me now as a parent, as a quote unquote step parent. We call me a bonus parent. Like, there are so many roles that we step into as humans. Glennon also calls them costumes that we put on, that aren't really what we want in terms of the way that it's been portrayed to us, right? So we're always constantly evaluating whether or not the identity or the costume or the thing that we've stepped into is what we want it to be, based on what we want, right? So if Glennon wants to wear 5-inch heels because that makes her feel good about her, then I am all for it. But like, is that really true that it's what she wants to like limp around all night?
As the 5'11" woman who has never been vertically challenged a day in her life.
Right. Well, this is what I'm saying. Like, let it come from you and the identity that you want to have as a person. So, and it's so cool. You guys will get this when Drew gets a little bit older, but like as your kid starts to develop their own identity, like we've got a kid who sometimes she wants to put nails on and do makeup and also go out and like kick butt on the soccer field.
Or wear a suit one day.
And like the next day she's dressed up in like total glam. It's like, I mean, it's mind blowing, but for us, we have to always constantly challenge ourselves and our kids. Like, what is identity? What identity do you want? What fits and what doesn't?
And then you have to figure out what parts you're resisting with your kids. Like, so you guys, our daughter,
for instance,
she wears suits for a week. And Abby's like, oh my God, this is so awesome. She's expressing herself. She is a free spirit. She is expressing herself. And then 2 weeks later, she comes out of the bathroom with eyeliner on and nails. And Abby's like, we need to talk. We need to talk, Glennon, about what Kim is doing. And I'm like, wait a minute.
She's
like,
one step away from goth.
Why is Suits expressing herself, but Nails is like she's about to become a felon? Like, I feel like maybe we are bringing our own idea of what freedom is to the child.
And that's where partnership is really good at being the mirror.
Right.
Well, that's my biggest fear with our daughter is the world already is like, oh, if you have a girl, she's going to be a gymnast. If you have a boy, he's going to be a football player.
Oh,
and the world's already painting their identity for them, which makes me furious. How do you teach a kid from day one to be their own human being?
Okay.
This is so good. I love it.
Okay.
This is it.
They got it. Here's the game plan.
Okay.
This is all we have to do is get them to be themselves.
Yep.
Right? Just get them to be themselves. And just have their whole life be a conversation. And have parenting them be like the treasure hunt and not like the expectation list.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when I remember a couple years ago, I put this in Untamed. So Tish came home and she was like, Mom, Chase wants me to be in all of these nerdy high school clubs. And I don't want to be in these clubs. And I said, well, Tish, then just don't be in the clubs. Like, what's the problem? And she said, well, I don't want to disappoint him. And I said, okay, child, listen to me. Your job throughout your entire life is to disappoint as many people as it takes so that you never disappoint yourself. Right? And she said, even you? And I said, especially me. Right? Because no matter, I mean, listen, as you do, we know some of the biggest badass activists, athletes, actors in the whole world, and they can be doing the most amazing things. And at the end of the day, they are still trying to impress their parents. Right?
For sure.
Their parents can have been dead for 20 years and they are still living every day to earn the fake approval of parents, right? That's like the biggest conditioning. We have to raise kids who we have trained not to not disappoint us, but to not abandon themselves, right? Because every little being that comes into this world has his or her or their own path, right? Own relationship with the God that made them.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what happens is that parents step in and become these fake gods, right? That the child is looking at us for who to become and what to say and how to act and and that becomes their cage, as opposed to there is no middlemen between your child and their maker, right? And so however you would teach them to look towards that maker instead of us is what we have to do. You would call it something else. I would call it like uncovering the deepest part of you, which I believe is God, right? So the idea is to step out of the space of conditioning and expectation, right? So that they're living their whole lives. Is this going to please mom?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Drew will take her cues. She's a girl, right? I just want to be clear.
Yes.
Yeah. Our goddaughter, her name is Drew also. So I just... You never know. Sorry.
We already had that like a ton though, which is hysterical. Everyone's oh, Drew, it's a boy. I was like, no, she's a girl.
No, it's a girl. We get it.
So good. I love
that. Drew is going to learn from y'all in the way that you respond to her. If she ever gets into gymnastics or if she ever gets into football, if it's available for Drew when she gets older. But like at the end of the day, I mean, Tish, like the other day she said, like under her breath out loud, I don't know if I want to play college soccer. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I don't want to disappoint you. And I was like, Tish, I don't care what you do. It matters not to me. The last time we spoke about this, which was like a year ago, you wanted to play college soccer. So I'm going to help you do that. If that's what you want, if that's what you say you want, I'll help you. But like, I'm not going to push you. This is all on you. You get to, you have to be the one that motivates yourself. There's going to be no like, there's no disappointment. What's the thing that you and Liz Gilbert say to each other?
Oh, I'm not subject to disappointment.
Yeah. Like they get to live their own life and they're going to have some ups and downs. We're going to be stability people for them. Like if you need us, we're here, but you have to go out and figure it out on your own.
And that comes at a certain age too. How old is Drew?
9 months old.
Oh shoot. Okay, she's not ready yet to totally do this on her own. I'm sorry, you two. You're gonna have to stay in there a little longer.
Okay.
But you get to this point. You do get to this point where you switch your role as a parent. It's like if you're climbing a mountain together for a very long time, you're the guide, right? You're like they're following you. You're the guide. You're telling them every little thing, and then suddenly you're like the Sherpa. You're like, just give me your stuff.
Yeah.
I'm following you, right? Like I'm here and I'm holding your stuff and I'm like,
it's not easy to make that transition for some people though.
No, it's not when you're a control freak and you know that's for everyone. You like to be the guy.
I am every day more and more amazed at how humbling being a parent is. I mean, Glennon, you said in your book, like your goal is not to save them. Your goal is to watch them save yourself. And like, that means so much, even in our baby phase where it's like, man, we want to be hands-on, even though she's kind of learning how to walk. And like, she has 2 little bruises on her face right now and it's brutal, but it's like, you just have to remind yourself, like, it has to be like this. I feel like she has to have some bumps and bruises along the way, or else
she'll probably have the exact same bruise for a while. They usually fall in the same exact spot or whatever.
And then Andrew, and then they get bigger, and like I just think if you just keep that visual of your whole life of Drew with the little bruises on her head, and that is proof not that you're doing it wrong, but that you're doing it right. That you're giving her enough freedom.
It's so hard.
Oh my God! Wait till she's a teenager, and the bruises are on her little heart.
I can't. I just want to wrap her in bubble wrap, and
and you suddenly realize that your little Jesus-loving heart actually wants to commit homicide against everyone who has ever hurt her. Like it's just, it's a journey.
Well, I know our time is coming to a close. I'm sitting here trying to think about who's better at what. Is it Abby better at soccer, or is it Glennon better at words and stories? It's like this has just been really, really fun.
You guys both have so much incredible wisdom for everyone to learn, and we are just honored to be talking to you guys. And please keep doing what you're doing, because I want Drew to grow up to like just follow you guys and be a fraction of what you guys are.
Well, I think it's so cool that you guys are doing this.
Me too.
A couple things. Podcast is awesome. I mean, Shawn, I have been such a fan of yours. I'm so happy for y'all that Drew is in your life. I mean, maybe not during COVID. Like, I think that's maybe time. It's probably crazy making, but I know that you've probably made some really awesome memories, and it's just the beginning. Drew is going to be so great. We are here for you whenever she gets older. If you guys don't want to put her in gymnastics or American football, the other football is also possible. Soccer.
Oh, I'm rooting for soccer.
Or poetry, less bruises.
Poetry would be amazing.
Side note, Glennon, that is how I won Shawn's heart was
he
poetry.
wrote me poetry.
Yeah. So anyway,
I know.
Hey,
guys, and I want to tell you that my favorite thing about your social media, which is I think it's just the way how much you love each other is clear.
Yeah.
And when you said, your social media is like the cute, annoying things that your partner does. The whole thing about that is when we see that, we think, oh, he took that video and he thinks she's as precious as she is. Like you can see how much you can see how you see each other.
Yeah.
Which is a really beautiful thing. So thank you for being you. And Andrew, call me anytime you want to argue about Jesus.
Hey, well, I love the conversation. We're grateful for your time.
Congratulations on both, or congratulations are in order for both your books. Please, everybody go get them.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Check out Untamed and Wolfpack. Glenn and Abby, we'll talk later.